To you, Gene.
At this time, it's an absolutely wonderful honor to introduce a chef, eater, storyteller, teacher, all by her own recollection, but a member of Snack versus Chef on Netflix, a Food Network Chop champion. Introduce the wonderful, talented Clara Park. Clara, welcome to Food Farms and Chefs. Such a great honor to have you. One of my favorite types of competitions.
Oh,
It really makes you think outside the box.
Yes, I'm sorry, you cut out. I didn't hear what you said before. Think outside the box.
Oh, okay. We'll go back to that. Okay, Brad, cut all that.
sounds good.
Okay, we're gonna start again. You tell me when.
You can start now.
At this time, it's an absolute wonderful honor to introduce chef, eater, storyteller, teacher, Food Network Chop champion, one of the alumni for Snack versus Chef on Netflix, Chef Clara Park. Clara, welcome to Food Farms and Chefs. Great honor to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So, Clara, there's a lot to talk about with you. Obviously, you're great competition world, but really a lot of your culinary background. You're bringing in some of your family's history to a lot of the dishes you made. You started out early with being involved in wing wars in Atlantic City, but here in Philadelphia, I mean, you've been a prominent chef for a while, but you're not from. Well, you're from Philadelphia, but you did your education and a lot of your culinary background and pre-Philadelphia in not only the West Coast, but in France itself and your education in New York. Tell us a little bit about your education, your upbringing, and your inspiration.
Sure. So I grew up on the main line from 8 to 18. I went to Baldwin and Penn Valley Elementary. And then I went to University of Chicago, got a degree in psychology. I started a PhD at Columbia, hated it. So I dropped out with just a master's. And my parents took me on a trip to South Korea and China for a month. And my dad said, we're not going to eat the same thing twice for 30 days. And we didn't. And I think my family loves food. We love cooking. We love eating. We love travel. And I think that trip just solidified in me that I want to work with food. I want to be a chef. I don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a banker. And I came back and I found a chef that I had met at a benefit. And I just reached out to him and I said, hey, I want to be a chef and I want to learn more about this. And he let me stage at his restaurant, which happened to be 11 Madison Park, which is one of the best restaurants in the world. So literally my first kitchen was 11 Madison Park's kitchen, which by any stretch it's an unbelievable kitchen. It's huge, it's beautiful. Everyone that's working there has, a lot of skill and the food that they do is really amazing. And then I was hooked from the first night I was there. Then I did the work study program at the Institute of Culinary Education in New York, worked off my tuition for a year. Then I attended classes for a year. And then it's always been my dream to live in San Francisco. So I moved to San Francisco the day after I graduated. And I did my externship at Restaurant Gary Danko, which was the best restaurant in San Francisco at the time, because this is like a million years ago. And I worked at Gary Danko, Town Hall, and then I had an opportunity to work for Richard Reddington in Napa Valley. So the same chef that was the chef at 11 Madison Park, Carrie Heffernan, was in my restaurant in San Francisco to tell me to go work for Richard Reddington, which is, that's Deus Ex Machina. That's a scripted movie moment that my mentor from New York was in San Francisco to tell me to move to Napa and go work for this guy. So I did, and I learned a lot about, high quality ingredients, wine pairing, what it means to know your farmer. Like the quail farmer would show up with 3 dozen quail. He's like, oh, Wolf Ranch quail, here you go. And it was a totally different way of approaching food because we knew who was making the food, who was catching the food, who was foraging the food. So it was a much more intimate relationship, and the food tastes better, obviously. But it's also building a community, and that's something that, as I've gotten older, has gotten very, very important to me. So I missed home, so I came back to the East Coast. I worked for David Chang and Peter Serpico at Momofuku Co. I worked for Mark Vetri and Jeff Michaud at Osteria when they first opened up. And my sous chef there was Joey Baldino, who is to this day a wonderful friend. Polizzi Social Club, I think, is the best place to eat in Philadelphia if you can get in. And I've been back on the East Coast now since I think 2009 or 2010. So you're right. A lot of my backstory is not in Philadelphia, but I am a proud Philadelphian. And, you know, in terms of my food and how I approach things, most recently on Snack for a Chef, the snacks that I did were, you know, they were American, they were Middle Eastern, they were Korean, you know, influenced. And I think that's the beauty of food now, right? I'm Korean American. I grew up eating pretty much Korean and American foods, but I've been able to go to Italy. I've been able to go to France and Spain, and I've been able to, you know, learn French and just try all different things. And I think the greatest thing about Philadelphia is that you can find anything you want. You know, if you want injera at an Ethiopian restaurant, you can go get it. If you want to get hand-pulled noodles in Chinatown, you can get it. If you want to have, what's that? Oh, mangosteen used to be impossible to get in the United States. I was just at River Wars. They cost like $3 a piece, very expensive, but it's an unbelievable fruit that you couldn't get, you know, 10, 20 years ago. And now it's at the market, which is right by my house. And I think, it's exciting, you know, to be able to try all these different things, and then you can have all these resources and meet people from all over the world that have all these really rich food cultures. And I think that that's just really, it's an exciting time to be alive, to be a chef, to be an eater. And I'm going to be writing about authenticity and ethnic food and what it is to be a chef with a certain, you know, cultural background, and how I feel about the food that I make, the food that I'm allowed to make. That's going to be in Philly Mag, I think sometime this month, online.
One of the things that I truly love about you, and there's, you know, all degrees of chefs when it comes to, you know, how they approach food. And I'm an admirer of you because you too are a storyteller.
Thank you.
You tell a story with your food, with the lessons that you give, you know, and you give lessons to places like Old City Kitchen in Philadelphia, Laura's fabulous venue there. The Free Library, you've been at Reading Terminal Market, you've done with the Philip Public Schools. But that, I taught school for 15 years. And one of the things that was important to me was, you know, I can teach a lot of people to cook, but if I teach them the story behind the culture and the food, they become so much better.
Absolutely.
And I like that about you, that storytelling, you know, eater. You're not shy about diving in and telling people about the culture. And I think that that's the next degree where we have to look in the world.
Absolutely.
So that being said, what's next for you?
So I have a stream on Kitsch, so www.kitsch.com. So I love teaching, and what I love about that platform is you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. So if you want to do like kitchen tips, lessons, cooking hacks, I'm envisioning something maybe like 12 days of snacks or 12 days of like drink hacks or whatever for the holiday season. And I love the freedom and the creativity. And so they give a lot of agency to the chef creators. So that's something that I will do this month. The article from Philly Mag is going to come out. And then I'm on the advisory council for the Culinary Literacy Center at the Free Library of Philadelphia. And we had a ridiculously successful culinary passport cooking series where I went to 4 different countries. So it was South Korea, which I did, Italy with Joey Baldino, Mexico with Francisco Ramirez, and Israel with Yehuda Seichel. And it was a crazy success. We sold out all 4 classes. So next year, probably starting in February, we're going to do part 2 of the culinary passport. So I'm imagining Argentina, Laos, French Canada, you know, maybe Haiti, but it'll be 4 new countries, 4 different chefs. They're going to share their expertise and their culture through their food. And I think it's been really amazing to see just how excited people are to try different things, learn different things. And I think the Culinary Literacy Center is one of the greatest, you know, resources we have in the area. And I'm a big fan of libraries, public education, and, you know, making lessons accessible to the public. And so I'm really proud of the work that we're doing there, and I'm really excited for that next unit.
Well, you really too have so many different catches to get young folks inspired? I mean, obviously your heritage and your love of food, but then, and I don't really want to spend much time on it, but being on Chopped, being that TV celebrity, winning, doing all that, that draws so many people in. I mean, food TV had, when I was teaching for 15 years, it was so important in drawing kids in, and they would be inspired. They all wanted to be the next network chef and, great chef and things like that. But they came in, and then you again, you tell that story, and you strive. What's next in your travels?
So I'm probably going to go back down to Charleston. My baby brother and his family live there, so I like to spend Christmas with my nieces and nephews. So that's probably going to be happening the next few weeks. And then a friend of mine just moved to London, so I'd love to go visit her. I'm just excited that we can travel again and reconnect
Yes.
with people. But to your point about food television, you're right. It's really powerful. It's accessible. I don't even know how many people have seen the Chopped episode. I mean, it's like 10 years old, but people still come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, I saw you on Chopped. I was rooting for you, blah, blah, blah." And then now with the Netflix show, Snack for a Chef, it's crazy. It's streaming in 100 countries. I've gotten messages from Korea. My friends have gotten messages from the Philippines, from Jamaica, from Liberia. It's insane, the reach of the show. But from a kid point of view, all of my nieces and nephews and my friends' kids are spouting off what the contestants and the judges have been saying, which is hilarious. So I was in Battle Pringle, and my best friend's son requested Pringles from the ShopRite. And so she brought them home, and then he just started spouting all these facts. Like, you'll notice there are no bubbles on the Pringle, and they're all exactly the same shape. And it's like, he watched an episode once, and he retained all this information, and they're all kind of like acting like judges now, and like 2 minutes or 2 minute chefs. And from one viewing, the show has impacted these kids like immensely. They learned a lot about how difficult it is to make these snacks. And I think we hit #1 for kids shows on Netflix like almost immediately. And I think it's because everybody loves snacks, especially kids, and to learn how they're made and what makes them special in a way that's digestible, pun intended, for children, I think is what's making it so popular. And my friend told me that what her kids were saying. I was dying, because I thought it was so cute that he was sharing the information, which she had also, she'd also seen it as well. But I think it's really great to make things entertaining but educational for kids and adults. And I think the best food television does that, right? You enjoy watching it. It doesn't require a lot of energy or mental capacity on your part, but you walk away from it with added knowledge and added value that'll help you cook and eat and shop and be like a better consumer. So I'm a big fan of, like, what is it? Edutainment is what they're calling it, right?
Yes, it is.
It's both things. Yeah. And I think this podcast also does that, right? Like, I feel like every time I tune in, I learn about, ice cream or spices or how to make beer. And I think that that's what's really great about it. Because again, it's digestible. You can listen to it at the gym or while you're driving.
Well, and that's what, the one thing that no matter where you're from, what your culture is, whether you're Korean or Israeli or, Scandinavian, we all can come together on food and have some common, experiences about breaking bread with family or trying new dishes. And, you've been a big help in introducing people to a lot of different things through your show, through your programs, everything like that. One of my favorites was watching your episode about Korean fried chicken.
Yeah.
And while I knew what Korean fried chicken was, I made Korean fried chicken. I learned so much that day. I took it to a whole new level. And something I do now with, my children and my family. And you've been an inspiration. I have 2 daughters who have that travel bug, both love food. One's getting ready to do a semester abroad in Japan.
Ooh.
And very excited about that. I was talking to her about, the Christmas tradition of fried chicken in Japan, where you literally need to make your KFC reservations 2 months in advance. But, and then my other daughter is getting ready to do another month over in Europe, just traveling around. And,
Amazing.
I keep telling them it's time to, get a real job and be an adult now, but, I guess in time that'll happen. but you've been such an inspiration for, and I don't want to say the millennials, but a whole entire population of people that you're inspiring to go out and say, hey, let's try these different things. Let's blend these cultures. Let's look at that. So, thank you for that. And kudos for you for that.
Thank you.
So you also skipped over a little bit of time you did in France when you were doing your intro. Can you tell us a little bit about your time over there?
Sure. So my culinary school, Institute of Culinary Education, has a relationship with a luxury country inn called Le Moulin Brejon in the Loire Valley. So it's in this little tiny town called Lanier-Bouton, population like 100. And Jonathan Robinson is an American painter who went over to France, and he just had a vision. He saw this dilapidated wheat mill from, 1600s, and it was in shambles, like nothing was working, but he just saw this rundown wheat mill on this huge plot of land, and he bought it and he renovated it, and he tried to keep all the original details. So when you go into the building, you see the gears and you see like the ropes and the things for grinding wheat. And it's a really spectacular place, and they have their own garden. They've got fruit trees. They've got chickens that lay eggs. So on any given day, you might be using butter lettuce and rhubarb and cucumbers from the garden. You might be picking nectarines from the trees. You might be grabbing eggs from the chickens for breakfast or omelets, or you're whipping up a souffle. And so that was probably one of the happiest times of my life, just to be able to use amazing ingredients literally outside my door. And we had a dialogue. So when guests would arrive from all over the world, I'd say, hey, I'm Clara, I'm your chef, and I'm really excited to have you here. What do you want to eat while you're in France? And people would say like, oh, whatever you want, or I like duck, or I like foie gras, or I really like cheese. But a lot of times people would say, oh yeah, whatever, we eat everything, which is never true. So then the counter question became, is there anything that you don't eat? And then that's when it's like, I don't like anchovies. I don't like, offal. I don't like quail. But it became this really fun, immersive experience. And some of my guests were like, this is some of the best food I've ever had in my life. And that was very endearing. But I think a big part of the reason was the dialogue and the relationship that we built before they even started eating. And it's like, hey, this woman really cares about what I'm eating and wants me to be happy and have a great time. And then you look out at the garden, the story, Gene, oh my gosh, this salad came from this garden that we walked by on the way into this building. And I think that it's such an emotional response, and it's fully immersive. And I think that I think everyone deserves to eat like that at some point. I know that it's not feasible for most people, but having, hyper local, seasonal, sustainable food prepared by someone who really cares to make it as delicious as possible, I think is one of life's greatest pleasures. And I was just having a discussion with someone. I was just in New York this past weekend, and the way that American society, unfortunately, is stratified, it's that to get the best food and the best service, you have to have the most money. And if you go to Europe or Asia or South America, you can find good food anywhere. And I really want to adopt that sentiment for the American public, where it's not like you have to be a hedge funder with a black card to have this exquisite meal, because I think that anyone can learn to cook well. And so I think that that's why I do so much teaching. That's why I do so much volunteer work, like Old City Kitchen, like doing classes there, doing classes at the library. Anyone can learn to cook, right? Ratatouille. Anyone can learn to cook. And I think that really good food should be accessible to everybody. And, when you make someone a sandwich or a bowl of soup, or, even just like a scoop of ice cream, like if you put the time and care into it to make it better, that'll be a better experience for the diner. And that's something that I believe in very, very, very strongly.
So on that note, and before we close out, when I was teaching, I was up in the suburbs for most of it, and then I was in the city for a short amount of time. But one of the things that I was able to do, and it's right along this, and I'm going to challenge you to, if we want to do this, is something we could do, because I know you are a big supporter of the Philadelphia School District as well and their culinary programs. We did a program for my students. It was called Farm to the Table, and we literally got some grant money to take students out to farms, culinary students. and we got them out there getting their hands dirty, talking to the farmers, doing that, and then bringing product back to create meals.
That's
And we
amazing.
involved the Philadelphia students with it. You know, we were dealing with students who, you know, in some cases really never were out of the city.
Yeah.
And here they are in the farms of Lancaster or Bucks County at an herb farm or at, you know, a poultry farm and things like that. And I know just the person who knows their way around the city a little bit or the state for grant money, a good friend of mine who was a school teacher in Philadelphia, that, you know, maybe we could do something like that and, you know, really help influence students by giving them access to those products that they would never see before.
Yeah, I would love that. That sounds amazing. I'm a huge fan of Farmer John.
Mm-hmm.
She's the first certified organic Black farmer, I think, in Pennsylvania, which is insane. And she's had an amazing journey. And I would love to introduce the students to her and all the wonderful work she's doing. So yeah, definitely, I'll reach out to you by email and we'll get that connect going.
Well, that being said, because we're running short on time, tell our listeners where they can follow you, where they can.
Sure. So you can always find me on Instagram at Clara Park Cooks. You can find my website, www.claraparkcooks.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and tune into Netflix's Snack for a Chef. Let's make it #1. I think it's #4 right now.
Let's do that. I'm right behind that.
And
Clara,
yep.
thank you so much. It's always inspirational to hear somebody with your passion and your desire to make a difference. Thank you for all you do. We look forward to talking to you again, and I look forward to working with you on a great project.
I do too. Thank you guys for having me.
No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.